like to call this meeting to order. Welcome here, everyone. At this time, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Damian Penner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Today's agenda is quite light, so I plan to keep this brief. Since our last regular council meeting, two major events have occurred, the one being a provincial election and the other being the holiday season of Thanksgiving. Now, to most, these two events have nothing to do with each other, but for myself, I try to give thanks in politics and government. First and foremost, I am thankful that our country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles and that our city, province, and country operate under a democracy. I am thankful on the provincial level that we just had hundreds of candidates of all political stripes take a risk and put their names forward on the ballot 2 weeks ago to represent their constituents. I congratulate Premier-designate Canoe on his recent election and wish him all the best going forward. I am thankful on the municipal level for my fellow peers who sit today on this dais and those in the past that have done so to build our city to what it is today. However, if it were not for our knowledgeable, integrous, and dedicated staff, we would often look the fool. So to the city administration, much thanks are given to you as well. I'm thankful for our mayor and our deputy mayor and how they represent our city so well. Between Mayor Funk and Deputy Mayor Zwijgstra, our city is in good hands with strong leadership. We in Canada have much to give thanks for politically, regardless of which political camp you may hang your hat in. It does not take many words to express thanksgiving, but it's important to pause and give thanks for all we have when many have not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Okay, Council, we all have the agenda in front of us, looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Susan, second by Councillor Hebert. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of October 3rd, 2023, the regular council meeting on page 1. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments? No comments, thank you. Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we will go, we have no public hearing, delegation, reports and recommendations for city manager, so we'll go directly into administration. We've got 9A, it's accounts payable, back of the book. Again, we've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9B, we've got the financial statements ending September 30th, 2023. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Zwijgstra, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we've got 9C. We've got the the building permits for September 23. It starts on page 4. Council, we've had we're having a great year. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a great year is an understatement in this case. We are at $182 million in building permits, which is by far our biggest year so far. I believe in 2012, that might be our next biggest year, and that was $122 million. So this is not even close, and it's not even the end of October. So I am wondering if we might actually even hit $200 million this year, which would be very exciting. But even if we don't, this is just an incredible, incredible year for building in our community.
Thank you. Anything further?
No, thank you.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? No. Yes, Councillor Penner is correct. I did downplay it a little bit. Great is not the word. Awesome is probably the better word for this. Yeah. But yeah, no, we're very excited. We've had a year where we've got a lot of commercial, industrial, and that kind of buildings that are built. We've had, matter of fact, in this month, the total permit value is $35 million. 33.5 of that is the new school, in the Park Hill area. So that is great. That is showing growth. And then often what has to happen is there's some years it's all residential. This year it's more commercial. Well, it has to catch up, right? They kind of play, one's winning, one's losing, but they have to, end up averaging out to about 50-50 over a 10-year period. So, but this is what we're seeing now. It's been a great year commercially. Commercial and industrial is alive and well in Steinbach, and it's so good to see businesses and events centers and schools, churches, and also healthcare coming to our community. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have business licenses, 9D on page 5, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments?
It's just nice to see businesses are taking out licenses. Thank you.
Anything to add? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8, we've got the bylaw 2020 or 2233 capital development fees. This is for non-residential capital development fees and sewer and water impact fees. This will be first reading. It starts on page 6. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Bylaw 2233, as you mentioned, is a proposed bylaw to update the city's capital development fees and sewer and water impact fees. The city has held some version of capital development fees for within the city and require that be applied to new development for many years. Bylaw 2233 proposes a new rate structure beginning in 2024 for a 4-year period. As was presented by administration at the September 12th Strategic Priorities Committee meeting, recommendation from administration is to proceed with a more significant annual increase of the rates as compared to what has been reflected in successive bylaws since 2013 in order to keep pace with the actual experience of the city in capital infrastructure costs. And for all intents and purposes, both the residential capital development fees, the non-residential capital development fees, and the sewer and water impact fees are all intended to address the same issues and to be used for the similar purposes of paying for additional growth within the city. However, in this particular recommendation and draft bylaw, what has previously been 3 separate bylaws have been combined into one document. We have also provided council with background information, which is a copy of the report that was considered at the September 12th committee meeting as background information. Recommendation from administration is for council to give this bylaw first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Council Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make the motion to proceed to give first reading to the bylaw as presented with one change, that instead of 7.5% per year, that be changed to 5% per year. But otherwise, the motion is for the recommendation, except for the amount.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll make this.
Okay. Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we had discussed this at our SPC meeting, so I'm just going to give some general comments as far as, first of all, why increase development fees at all. The development fees, they're intended to deal with growth in the city. The city, there are unique challenges that come with growth, and so we have our mill rate, which is used to pay, everyone pays on their properties, which is used for all of the expenses that the city has. But when the city grows, there are unique costs that come with that. So, for example, expansion of the lagoon, potential of having to have mechanical treatment for wastewater eventually, the eventuality of a second fire station. These are the kinds of things that happen. These are the kinds of costs that we deal with that come with growth. And so what capital development fees do is they help to mitigate that impact by putting money into reserves, so that way when we have to do these large projects, we have money in reserves to do so. Now, since 2012, the residential, non-residential capital development fees have been going up by 2.5% annually, which is below the rate of inflation in terms of construction. Construction cost inflation, based on the information we have here, has actually been going up by about 5 to 6% annually since that time. And so the reason that I'm proposing that we go with the 5% is that essentially matches that rate. So we're trying to balance the reality that we want to keep things affordable. We do not, because we know that every increase here ultimately gets passed on to consumers. That's the reality of it. But if we don't have these development fees, or if we don't increase them, if they stay the same, then that means that puts more pressure on the mill rate. So obviously projects are going to go ahead. Our infrastructure projects will have to happen. The question is, how do we balance that? And so I think that increasing the development fees to roughly correlate with what the actual inflation rate has been in construction, I think that is that strikes a reasonable balance. I should note as well that in the information package that was presented to us at the previous meeting that we all have before us, when you compare the city of Steinbach to other comparable cities, for the most part, our development fees are below other cities such as Winkler, Borden, Brandon. We're even below the town of Niverville. We are a little higher than rural municipalities such as Hanover, but that shouldn't be a surprise because in an urban center, there's a higher level of services that are expected. And so I think our staff have done some good work on this, and I think that going with the 5% increase appropriately balances the need to keep up with those additional costs without putting too much of a burden on people who are constructing new homes and businesses.
Anything further, Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Swagstra. I also agree with the City of Steinbach administration that we need to raise those rates. I know we've argued whether it should be 7.5% or 5%. It's been an ongoing, but I agree with 5% as well at this point. What development fees do, in my opinion, is that they allow access for new construction to our water, our existing water lines, and our sewer lagoon that we've built for expansion, so that those development fees then give access to that and to our streets. And what the development fees do is they go into a reserve fund and they're specific reserves funds, whether it's water, sewer, or streets, or residential, or building sidewalks, or we have those different reserve funds, and that's where those development fees goes. And that is to, number one, as we use those reserve funds for replacement cost of those facilities when they need, also for new construction, as described by Councillor Swagstra. That's another area that we need these development fees to continue to build reserve funds. That's what we do. And the other option is, as was stated too, is do we raise the development fees for new construction so that goes to the cost of the new housing, and that's their ticket into ours, or do we raise, because if we don't do that, then as a blanket cost, then we will raise our mill rate across the city to pay for those replacement costs and for new construction, because the reserve funds won't be getting filled in quick enough. So we have seen also that our development fees haven't been adequate because of the cost of construction, and specifically in the last year has gone up substantially, and so we see that all the time now. So we do need, the costs are going up everywhere, and our costs every time that we put out a tender, as we'll find out again a little later, is that our tendered costs aren't coming in at what we forecasted a year ago. So I think it is important that we raise these rates.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Penner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Councillor Swagstra recommending the 5% instead of the 7.5. Quite frankly, I wouldn't have supported the 7.5. 5% is more understandable based on inflation, obviously. The challenge is these expenses, or this increase, goes directly to gets passed on to, consumer. And in our climate right now, we see other levels of government, doing whatever they can to make housing more affordable. So I think it is certainly a challenge to balance the increase in costs, but still making Steinbach affordable and not pricing it out of the market for people. So I appreciate the 5%, and as a result, I will end up supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Pinner?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting this motion. Personally, I feel like when you have a budget and you have a budget put in place, you don't steal from Peter to pay Paul. Administration has put it forward to us that currently our development fees are not covering the cost of what is needing to go into the reserves for the development fees. A lot has been said about affordability, and the reality is if you're a citizen of Steinbach, you're either paying for it up front on the development fees or you're going to be paying it through the mill rate. I feel like if you have budget lines set up for something specifically, you should be putting money into that specifically for that. So I feel like the budget line should be at, or the budget line for the capital development fees should be at 7.5%. Having said that, I also am very happy that it is set for only 4 years. I don't think anything should ever be set to increase indefinitely. I don't think that that is appropriate. When you say that target inflation for Canada is 2%, I think that also is incorrect. You should never have a target inflation. Your targets should be zero. So I don't want to see inflation or an increase year over year set. I think it should be variable, and it should be in terms of where we are in the market. Currently, where we are in the market is we are not bringing in enough for future growth for the city, and we need to bring in more. So that's why I think that we should be putting it in the appropriate budget line and have it at 7.5% to try and catch up on our capital development fees. But until we do so, yeah, that's where we're gonna have to be. So I will not be supporting the motion. I think that we should be having it where it should be at 7.5%, but it's the will of council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we're discussing here is updating our capital development fees for water and sewer impacting bylaw 1883. As discussed by council on September 12th, we discussed at length what we were going to do with the development fees, and the recommendation at that time from council to administration was 7.5%. And now today, as Deputy Swagstra has indicated, Steinbach is lower fees than most other places around. And I believe we need to catch up. And if we don't catch up now, we're going to have to catch up somewhere. Inflation is running rampant, and I don't think it's up to the average taxpayer in town to pay for the capital fees, the development fees for somebody that's developing. I think that's should be supported by the developer. And yeah, sure, they'll pass it on to the purchaser, but that's the way the economy works. So I have an issue with the 5%. I believe it should be 7.5 as we discussed on September 12th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, council? Anything in closing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the comments all around. There's general agreement by everyone in council that obviously development fees, we do need to have them in order to deal with growth in the city. Of course, the debate is around the exact amount. The reality is even 7.5% wouldn't cover the cost of growth. The development fees, what they do is they help to mitigate some of that cost. And so the debate is over what is the proper amount to mitigate. And again, because the actual construction cost inflation has been in the 5 to 6% range since 2012, it seems appropriate to set the increase at 5%. I realize that initially at the SBC meeting, 7.5% was discussed, but that's not a final decision at that point. It comes to council, and we've all had time to reflect on it. And I don't think that homeowners are all going to be upset that we only increased the development fees by 5%. This is still a significant increase, and that will be felt. Obviously, we want to minimize impact on the mill rate, and that's why we're doing this increase. But we don't want the increase to be excessive either. And there's a pretty big difference between, in terms of the message it sends, between 5 and 7.5%, especially since previously we were going up by 2.5%. So essentially, this is doubling what the previous increase has been. I think that's enough.
Thank you, Councillor Swagstra. Well, council, I appreciate everyone's comments. I will just summarize a little bit here. I don't think that it's ever right to increase prices just because you're lower. I don't think that's the reason. That shouldn't be our motivator for increasing prices. When the development fees were introduced, they were introduced to help with, not cover costs completely. Help with the cost of of renewing infrastructure that was signed over by the city. I can agree with the 5% because it ties it directly to inflation. That's a real number. That's a number we can support going forward. And that's why I'll agree, I will support the 5%. But those are my comments. I feel that we have to look at Steinbach individually when we're looking at increasing costs. We have to also look at what is happening in our area and in our province and our country, and governments are doing their best to reduce the cost of housing everywhere. And I think we should be mindful of that too and do our part where we can. Yet, yes, we only get 8 cents on a dollar to maintain 60% of Canada's infrastructure. And this does help maintain that infrastructure. But I still think that 5% is a reasonable number that I think we can prove. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we got 9F on page 16. This is Board of Revision appointments. Every year, we have a Board of Revision. People that feel that their tax bill is incorrect or not justified can come and appeal. And we've had 3 gentlemen that have agreed to sit on this board, and they've done this for a few years. This is Matt Wheeler, Jack Kaler, and Roy Entz. And they've agreed to do this as well again on October 24th. And I'm just looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
Yeah, you know, years ago, council actually sat on this board, or was the board making the decisions. What I appreciate about it going to, well, not on council, that it's more objective, because this has to do directly with property taxation in our city. So I think by appointing people outside to do this role, I think that's more objective and more fair for the people who are making their case.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Call for the question. All's in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we've got 9G. This is the lift station number 2 upgrade project, referring to the tender award. Mr. Warkentine, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, a tender was issued seeking bids for the construction and upgrade of the city's lift station number 2 located at 330 Lowen Boulevard earlier this fall. Tenders for the project closed September 8th, 2023 with 2 bids received. A recommendation by the city's project consultant, Associated Engineering, is to award the tender to Penco Construction Canada 2003 Ltd. For the low bid of $1,996,642.57. Along with that recommendation, administration also is recommending that as the combined value of the project with the low tender bid along with the design and engineering costs will exceed the previously approved budget, that City Council also authorize that additional funding of approximately $250,000 be authorized to be provided by the city's utility replacement reserve fund to be allocated to that project.
Thank you, Mr. Warkentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for administration.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Mr. Warkentine, I didn't see on here, what was the original, I guess I could do the math, but there was the original estimate, approximately $1,750,000?
That would have been the preliminary engineer's estimate, which actually was somewhat lower. Actually was a bit lower than that. I believe it was just under 1.7 million for the project as was anticipated. However, the low bid in fact was just under $2 million.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra.
Make the motion to award the tender.
Do we have a seconder? Councilman. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, this is an important project. The Lift Station 2 does need these upgrades. As we were just discussing, with the impact of inflation, we see that many of our projects are coming in over budget. In this case here, the $2 million of it will be covered by a debt issue, and then the remainder, $250,000, will be using our utility reserve. But it's important that the project go ahead, and so I say that we should award the tender.
Thank you, Councillor Eichler. Anything further, Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This lift station is an important piece to a much larger project so that we can allow subdivisions to go ahead on the east side of Steinbach, as well as provide better flows through the city. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I think this is part of about an $8 million project in total. So it's important. It's also important to note that the $250,000 that they're recommending is coming with a utility reserve, which is being fed by development fees that we've talked about. So, but I think it is important to move forward with this project.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we got 9H. This is the auditor appointment, page 22. Mr. Working, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, this letter and proposal that is provided in the agenda package is from the city's current auditor, Reed and Miller, Chartered Professional Accountants. Recommendation from administration is that these same auditors be appointed for the 2023 fiscal year and completion of the audit.
Thank you. Council, looking for a motion to approve the auditor appointment? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
This is something that's, standard routine that we do. We've used this firm before, so I think it makes sense that we use them again. They will know our city quite well, and they also have a lot of experience in this area.
Any
What
comments?
I like about them, and they're a reputable firm, they have done well for the city in the last couple of audits that we've discussed with them. They're very personable, and just for the interest of the council at the Manitoba Association of Watersheds, we just hired them this week as well. So I like the firm, and I think their rates are reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Anything further of council? Nothing in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to 11A, Correspondence Petitions. We've got the Manitoba Municipal Relations. This is referring to the 2023 Municipal Operating Grant. This is the final payment of the increased operating grant. As you can see, there is a schedule on page 25. The final payment is $811,293.35. So, Council, how would you like to proceed? Take this information. Okay. There's no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. The next regular council meeting is Tuesday, November 7 at 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you.